chaotic scenes there at Allianz Stadium, but for the Roosters, Sam Walker, ACL, he's going to have surgery this week. Brandon Smith, MCL and ACL, may not have surgery on it just yet. Victor Radley, fractured scapula. Season likely over, but not 100% yet. Are you prepared to put a line, Gal, through the Roosters' premiership chances now?
Oh, look, they've got all three out for the rest of the season, probably. Let's not forget, Jordan Rapana went out with a broken eye socket too earlier in the match. So he was absolutely chaotic. Look, I think had they lost one, I thought had they lost the halfback Walker, they probably could have brought in Sandon Smith. He's trained with them all year. I get the feeling the players in the squad would trust him. He knows what the game plan's all about. But then they lost, obviously, Radley and the other Smith. Yeah, that's a big loss. To have three of your starting 17 out of the contest, it's a huge out. Big out. They've got great depth, the Roosters, and they'll still be competitive. Whether they can win the competition, remains to be seen.
Gus, you said for a number of weeks now that they're potentially the premiership favourites, but this clearly would change your mind now?
No, not really. But I think it was one of the more absorbing games of rugby league that I've been involved with for a long, long time. I'll remember this game for a long time. First of all, during the week, Ricky Stewart told me they would beat them. He said, we'll go there and beat them. And he was very confident about it. And in the early stages of the game, you get a feel for a game. You get a feel for who's ready and who's not. The Roosters were not ready to feel that uncomfortable all weekend. They didn't anticipate that sort of game. And I thought that the Raiders had them on tilt long before the injuries came. I really thought they were bustling and hustling and doing what they wanted to do, and they got out to a good lead. But the second half, with the Roosters with all those injuries, and they courageously fought on, and then the Raiders courageously kept defending their own line. I think the whole second half was played on the Raiders' try line, and they just kept turning up for each other. They weren't just tackling, they were banging in defence. They were physically assaulting the opposition and going really well. And it was an absorbing game of rugby league. Full credit to the Raiders. What a win that was. That was absolutely brilliant.
It was like a street fight, Gus, for the Raiders.
It was.
And I spoke to Ricky Stewart before the match, and I said, mate, you're playing the best attacking side in the competition. Yeah. Do you have to outscore them or defend? And he goes, mate, we've got to outscore them. Now, I don't know if he was selling me a dummy, but they didn't try to outscore them. They tried to beat them. It was a dead set street fight. They were there to bash them, and they bashed them. I get the feeling had the Roosters had their full complement at the back end of the second half, they may have been able to get over the line, but they didn't. They had them three losses, big losses inside, as we know. But the Raiders beat them up, and as you said, how courageous they were defensively. The Roosters had plenty of ball on their try, plenty of opportunities to score points, but they couldn't. They had them frazzled.
Yeah, I spoke on radio before the game, and people were saying, like, we all know how the Roosters are so talented. They score more points than any other team. They said, what's the thing that's lacking? I said, unlike Melbourne and Penrith, they don't like being uncomfortable. They haven't learnt to play uncomfortable. If the opposition can make them feel uncomfortable, they'll try to wing their way out of it rather than digging in. Now, yesterday was different. They actually really did dig in yesterday. I thought the Roosters were really courageous given everything that had happened. Their game fell apart when Walker goes off, and then they had those other injuries as well. Their hooker's gone off, just changed the dynamic. But they've got enough talent to get over that, and they just weren't able to do it. The Raiders were just too tough for them on the day.
If I heard you say in the call yesterday, I actually disagreed. You said you'd play a lot of the players this week. I wouldn't versus the Bunnies. I'd rest them totally. I think training these days is intense enough and hard enough that they can put the players they need to take those positions and get what they need out of training, rather than playing versus the Roosters, versus the Bunnies. We know how much they hate each other, these two clubs, and the Bunnies are going to be doing everything to get under their skin. I believe anyway. They'll be trying to beat them up. They'll be trying to take them out as well. They'll be trying to bait them into doing something stupid. If I was the Roosters, I'd be resting everyone this week. Just playing almost their reserve grade side and just getting ready for week one of the semi-finals.
Breeny, the other subplot was Whitehead v Robbo.
Yep.
What did you make of that? And, I mean, Whitehead, yes, has quite the rap sheet, but most of the offences have been fairly minor.
Yeah, we've got it here, and he's had, I think we counted them up, 11 charges in the NRL. He's had 3 hip drops in the past, and they're all fines only. And this one's obviously more serious than that. It was a grade 2. So after the match, he's tried to go and apologise, and then it's Whitehead who's raised it first in the press conference. And he said that he felt disrespected. He felt it was not on the way Trent Robinson spoke to him. And Trent Robinson said, I just said, you know, it's too common in your game, and that was it. I'm pretty sure Trent Robinson probably said more than that. But in the heat of battle, after a match, Trent Robinson's lost his hooker, his halfback, his strike weapon back rower. He's staring down the barrel of an unbelievable opportunity going out the back door in the space of 80 minutes with those injuries. You know, I don't mind a blue between two blokes.
I agree.
I reckon it's all right.
I've got no problem
that's
with
what
it.
That's what the game's based on.
I have absolutely no problem with any of it. Robinson's sticking up for his players, sticking up for his team, having to go to bloke.
Whitehead's sticking up for himself.
And Whitehead's going to apologise, probably trying to do the right thing. He feels bad for what has happened, and he's stuck up for himself. Look, I know the media, we love a feud, but I've got no issue with any of it at all.
He copped a bit of a bake from Trent Robinson, and you know, as long as
I'm sure he'd give it back to Robbo too. I got no problem with any of it.
The only criticism might be, is it a bit rich, Gus, the fact that Jared Warrior-Hargreaves and Victor Radley have significant rap sheets and Trent Robinson's having a go at Elliott Whitehead?
Yeah, well, if you look at the numbers there, they're the most... the match review committee has been to the Roosters more than any team in the competition with, you know, charges and weeks spent off and fines and all that sort of thing. I mean, the Roosters sail pretty close to the win most of the time when they're playing as well. You know, but for me, the challenge now for the Roosters is you can only control what you can control. They've got a roster deep in talent. All right? They've got a young fella there in Sandon Smith who can come in and play in the playmaker role. They've got to find themselves a dummy half they can trust. I think Zach Docker-Clay can do that role. Certainly that, you know, Connor Watson can fill in there at different times. I wouldn't change Connor Watson from being number 14. But they've got enough talent to still win this competition. It's not as though that Panthers and Storm and Sharks are shooting the lights out at the moment. They're just not. You know, like there's no one really put their hand up in the last couple of weeks and said they want to be premiers. We're all waiting for Roosters to do it. They haven't done it. But now it's a new challenge. And I actually thought that part of his press conference, Trent Robinson, he handled really well. He said, let's get excited about the challenge ahead. All right, we've got some kids. That's why you have 30 players in your roster. And they have got 30 players, 30 real good players in their roster. I know they're missing the ones that they'd really like to have in the game, but they can still put a side on the field that can win. And, you know, there's no reason why they can't.
I think that they lose a little bit of X factor without Walker, but, you know, that's like, I agree with you. I think they've got a good enough roster to replace it. Like,
that's why I'm saying play them all next week, because all of a sudden you've got to put Luke Keary in charge. You've got to get the young bloke into the sixth role.
You lose Tedesco, you lose a Keary, you lose a Tupanua or someone again. I just think it's too big a risk playing the biggest feud.
Zach Docker-Clay didn't get much time yesterday. If he gets a run next week, you don't want him going another 2 weeks.
Lee should come back too.
Gus, you know how hard they train these days. The intensity of training, how hard they train. They will get enough out of training that they don't need to play. I don't think they need to risk playing against South Sydney, the book of feuds, the hatred there. I don't think they need to play the players. If I was them, and I'm not them obviously, but I'd rest them.
I think it would be a training gallop against South.
So their B team could beat them. So yeah. I'd play their B team. But